Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino Degregori, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino Degregori.
Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Degregori. Today we have another amazing guest with us, Lauren Pennell. Is a General Operations Manager, also known as the COO for Big T Properties here in Leesburg, Virginia. I've known Lauren for more than 3 years, but most importantly, I've been very impressed with her kindness and how she treats others. We are been in this building for a little bit over 3 years and change, and I've known you ever since and been very impressed with who you are, how you treat your tenants, how you treat people you don't even know, and I'm super excited to have you here join us. I know I've had different guests as part of the podcast, more on the government contracting, pilots, and as I said, I wanted to kind of bring other folks in different industries, and you're the first real estate guest coming into the podcast, and because Kind Leader is not just in one vertical. Kind Leader can be in many verticals, right? And that's, we're trying to create that awareness and share to folks that being a kind leader can be amazing. So with that, Lauren, do you mind giving us your background, who you are? Tell us who you are, and we'll go from there.
First, thank you so much for having me, Gino. It's a real pleasure, and I admire you as a kind leader very much as well. So we met in the context of a commercial building that my company manages. We're a small real estate investment company, and we have a portfolio of residential and commercial properties that we manage with a really lean team. So before that, I had a stint as a eat what you kill run-of-the-mill real estate agent. And then prior to that, I had a longer career within the racehorse industry. So, and so I've had a little bit of a circuitous route to get here. And then I also have a degree in fine art. So zigs and zags all over the place.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing your background there. And we're happy to have you here on our podcast. Our first question that we're asking our guests is, what does it mean to be a kind leader to you?
I think that the most important thing for a kind leader to do, first and foremost, is to lead. Mm-hmm. So your function is to show the way. And in showing the way, part of those are the things that you say, the decisions that you make. And those are critical. Because if you aren't leading, then you're letting your team down on the most important thing, that's being decisive and taking action. But to be a kind leader, you're demonstrating integrity for your team. And integrity is really all or nothing. I remember I couldn't possibly quote who I heard this from, but it's really stuck with me that you can't have a lot of integrity. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like having a lot of integrity is like being a little bit pregnant. No. You either are or you're not. Right. And it's because integrity is unconditional. It doesn't matter the circumstances. You always have integrity or you don't have integrity. And so, when you're a leader, people are looking to you for that guidance about where we're going, what is this ethos. But then, and to ethos, integrity, you can have integrity without having kindness. Right. Because kindness is an ethos. Mm. And I think that the ethos of kindness is that you recognize the lived experience of everything, every living thing around you, every living person around you, and recognizing that it's as dear to them as it is to you. Right. So their success and their happiness is just as important to them as your success and your happiness is to you. Yeah. People are looking for you to be sincere. And so that sincerity means that you're always the same person. Right. It doesn't matter whether it's a big client or your colleagues or, a brand new intern mm-hmm. or a cashier that you're working with or some other person driving on the road, mm-hmm. And so I think people are actually a little bit more forgiving of a person who has integrity that is not trying to be kind. Mm-hmm. Like a person is like a jerk and they're just like bold about their jerkiness. Like, I'm a jerk and I own it. Mm-hmm. In some ways they have integrity. Yeah. But people are more like unforgiving of someone who espouses kindness, but then doesn't live it.
Right.
So that lack of sincerity really breeds distrust.
Right.
So I think like a kind leader is constantly demonstrating the sincerity of their kindness
Right.
while they're leading.
Right. Being genuine, essentially, too, right? It's when you were talking, one of the things that came up is a saying that goes, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yep.
And being genuine, being kind, being, it's either who you are. I mean, you can become that too, but it's either, you are that in every scenario of your life.
Right.
Not just in certain situations.
Not just when it might benefit you.
Right. Right. So I know, in the business, I am the same person. How we interact, in certain situations, I need to step up and be more decisive as well as more direct in certain situation, but with the humility and respect that's needed and required to have the communication with someone, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure my kids won't agree. Because, at home is a little bit, I'm still kind, but, there's discipline, right? And there's certain things that you're teaching your kids to be, right? So there's certain things I'm trying to put, correlation there.
Well, that falls in the category of remaining a leader always.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, that like one of the most unkind things you can do as a leader is fail to lead or be indecisive or not hold to the goal.
Absolutely.
So they're relying on you to do that. So
Absolutely. So we talked about definition in your words of kind, and I appreciate that. That's a really good definition. Do you have an example of what a kind leader means to you in your experience?
So I actually, I'd like to draw on like a story that my mother used to tell me growing up. So her parents were dairy farmers. I say her father because I think he kind of conscripted his wife into it. I don't know that she was his game to do it as he was. But so she would tell me, oh, Daddy said this and that. And one of the things that she used to say, that he would say, was, no one sits until the work is done. And I love that as an edict, like a parental edict, because I think that it perfectly communicates to children that each of them is valued equally. Because you're saying the challenge or the task faces all of us equally. And, if it's kids, then, an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old are not necessarily going to contribute equally.
Right.
But the expectation is the same because the challenge is faced by all of us. So the reason I cite that as an example of kind leadership is it's demanding, but it's also, it shows love in the way that I think exemplifies kindness. So I try to live by that, like in terms of work approach, even though obviously, not everybody is contributing the same way, but we're all faced with the same goal and we all enjoy the reward, at the end once the task is completed. So.
I love that. Can you repeat that again? The saying?
Oh, sure. Yeah. No one sits until the work is done.
No one sits until the work is done. I like that. That's powerful. It's really. I thank you for sharing that and that story from your mom, and I could definitely relate as it relates to no one's done until the work. No one.
No one sits.
No one sits until the work is done. Okay.
Even if your work is not at is vitally critical, but you don't rest.
Right. It's the thing I can relate to different areas in my life, right? Whether it's at home or here in the business, or like we support a lot of, government agencies that have a very specific mission, right? So we have to continue to support that mission no matter what. So, and I like that. I really like how you position that or how that story kind of laid out for me. So, but we do that every day. And even at home, is leader doesn't mean that you can't be, like you said, that the integrity and the drive on how you as a leader, you can still be kind, but you got to drive. You got to have the accountability is what I'm trying to say with everything that you do, for sure. So thank you for sharing on that. Really, really good story there. I really like that. So tell me a little bit more about, yourself as it relates to growing in a farm. I'm curious, not in with the horses, I mean, not a farm.
Sure. Well, I've never actually lived on a farm other than little brief stints,
Yeah.
but I found my way there of my own accord. To be honest, when I first started, I couldn't believe someone would pay me to ride horses. I was just like, are you kidding? I credit horses with teaching me so many incredibly valuable lessons. Anybody who knows me knows I'll bring it back to, horses. But one of the things that's wonderful is they teach you lessons about emotional sympathy and empathy. It's not couched in language. It's so honest. And like one of my favorite lessons that I learned from horses is the spectrum of fear to curiosity. So I think every horse, and to that degree every human,
Right.
approaches something new or that's daunting with a response that is somewhere along that spectrum of fear to curiosity.
Right.
So like one of the early lessons that I learned, like in terms of leading, because you're always the leader when you're trying to ride a horse. And one of the things that I did a lot of was starting young horses. So I'd be the person who'd be with them when they were encountering something for the first time. And a lesson that I learned from horses that I don't think I could have learned this from humans as clearly, was that my job was to present them with something that was challenging without having it be just overwhelmingly challenging, to pace them along a course of increasing challenges and allow them to find their way to curiosity. So my job was never to double down on the fear by rushing them or, demanding or forcing, but always to allow them, I always used to say, look, you don't have to do this now, but you do have to do it before we go home, and I've got all day. So we can't turn around and walk away from the problem,
Right.
but you can take as long as you need.
But I love that, and that's why I got into that pull the thread on the horses, because you were leading with kindness there, right? You talk about not pushing too much on the fear, kind of borderline, kind of pushing, but not so much where they're gonna retreat, and not be able to do those things, right? And communication is not like you can talk to them. I mean, you can, but you're not expecting any responses, right? But they can feel the energy. They can feel your energy of excitement, your energy of sadness, your energy, right? And that's something that as leaders in the real life, we share the energy. Like we're having a conversation, but you can feel the energy between us right now, and genuine, right? A genuine energy. We're having a simple conversation here, an exciting conversation. But when you're leading, people feel that energy. If somebody comes in with very negative, dragging energy into a conversation, or fear energy, people shut down, right? People are not like, I don't want to be near that or part of that. But if you come in with this energy where you are there to support, there to lead, humble, that kind of stuff, it's just a different energy that anybody in this world can feel, whether human or an animal. And as you're leading, and just more tips for the audience here, as your leader, remember that the energy that you bring to the table every day is what people will feel and will sense. And it's addictive sometimes, right? And it's addictive in both positive and negative. So bring the best energy.
Well, and you also build a record. So like I was talking about the fear to curiosity, people and animals, every creature they have a personality that they're born with, and, you have a history and so forth. But I think personality is a big part of it too. So people have a tendency one way or the other, and the more reps you get in with where they, bring it back to the horse context, like the more opportunities they have to discover that this is what the pattern's going to be. I'm going to face something that is unexpected, and I'm going to overcome it. That's how they build confidence. They build confidence in you. They build confidence in themselves, and then you build confidence in them, and the two of you build a confidence in a relationship.
Wow.
So
You build that trust.
Yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
huge trust. I didn't know that. You know what I mean? I know the horses were smart and remember, but that's beautiful that you build a trust and they remember you. I'm sure when you go back, the horses will remember.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they never forget.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So I love the story and I love your background when it comes to, horses and relating that to leading with kindness or being a kind leader. One of the things that I love to talk about in the podcast is about growth and scarcity mindset. And because it's the same, right? It's that not only the energy that you feel, that you carry yourself on a daily basis, but also your mindset. What are you thinking every day? I think I shared this stats a while back or a previous episode is 80% of our thoughts are negative.
Wow.
We wake up, and we're like, it's trying to protect us to do, don't do that or do this, you know what I mean? What about this? And then also we getting a lot of feedback from the news. If you do listen to the news, I tend not to, it's always about kind of that fear and the negativity. So we're already coming from behind to trying to shift that. So it's very important for people to have that mindset. And one of the things that I do, I meditate every morning and look at the day on what I'm going to be accomplishing or where is my energy. I'm not perfect. Some days are great. Some days, I could, I could sleep some more to make sure I have enough energy to lead us. But coming back to the question is growth versus scarcity mindset. Tell me a little bit more about that and how you adopted that in your career.
So I actually am reminded of a wonderful learning experience for myself where I really benefited from having a kind leader of my own.
Okay.
This was about 2 years ago, and we were really in a really busy phase. We had a lot going on, a lot of transactions, and a lot to manage. So one of the contractors that we work with, a couple of projects came together all at the same time so that we needed him to do about 4x the amount of work we normally would ask.
Right.
And I had a lot of experience working with him. I thought I had a sense of the cadence and capacity that he could, keep up with, and the lead time that he needed and so forth. So when that happened, I actually started trying to reconfigure what we needed to I tried to front run the situation and say, oh, okay, we can reorganize how we're going to do this to work with what I thought he could do. And my leader at the time was, no, just ask him to do it. And I just pushed back and I'm like, no. We can work this out. We can make it easier for him. I came up with all these different kind of solutions. And he's like, no, just ask him to do it. He'll show up. So I asked him to do it.
Okay.
And he hardly blinked.
Wow.
And he got it done. And it's a significant amount of work in a short period of time. And so I learned in that moment that I had nearly denied him an opportunity to show me what he was capable of. Because I was actually coming from a position of empathy. Mm-hmm. I was trying to be helpful,
Right.
But if I had succeeded in my helpfulness, then for all I know, that incident catalyzed a growth for him. Mm-hmm. That his business was able to expand because maybe he became resourceful in ways that he hadn't been asked to do before. And so I actually approached it from a scarcity mindset. He can do what he can do. There's only this much this much availability, only this much capacity. This is the size of his company and this is what we're capable of getting done at one given time. And instead, my hand was forced to ask for growth and growth happened.
Wow.
So that was a big learning experience for me. And I've tried to catch myself, even if I'm motivated out of empathy, to not limit what myself or the people around me are actually capable of by thinking I already know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And people underestimate, right? Underestimate sometimes when, like you said, you came into it with empathy. It's like, oh, we can't support that, right? So you created already you cared, you understood his situation or her situation, right? But at the same time, you knew that, your hands was forced, right? But you knew that needed to get done, but you weren't sure if they were going to get it done, right? Mm-hmm. So in our minds, sometimes, oh no, we want to take care of, we want to, be helpful, but we didn't give the opportunity for other people to really step up and really deliver or create, or even in their mind, oh, I can do this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would summarize it with, I heard this yesterday actually, communications creates relationships or enables or builds relationships. And the communication right there that was missing, because you didn't communicate
That's right.
your thoughts
Right.
to him, right?
And when I did, I learned that I was wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes, and not sometimes, a lot of times this happens, that we create stories in our minds. We create some of these limiting beliefs, not only for ourselves that, no, we can't do that, or, but we also create this limiting belief for others.
Yep.
Without really truly understanding the situation. And us as leaders, I like pushing people in a way that they're going to be successful, right? You set them up for success, not for failure, right? But if we don't push, just like lifting weights, if you don't continue to build that muscle and take it beyond exhaustion, just for a little bit, right? The muscles don't build, right? So our muscles won't build, and our relationships won't build, or the people won't grow around us because we're limiting them. So great story to share as it relates to that, and I'm glad that this person was able to complete the job, right?
Oh yeah, and without a blink, and so that was a great lesson for me.
Absolutely. So have you carried that after that? You carry that mindset with your team and everything that you do?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that another way to apply that lesson is to not set expectations based on past performances. And so, let's say you're working with someone and you ask them to do something, and they maybe don't give you the effort that you could have done.
Right.
So, the way that I think it's important to look at that is, you may be experiencing them in the prelude to the first chapter of their journey on this subject or in this skill, and they may far exceed you, which would be a wonderful thing for a leader to discover that they have a teammate that is way better than them at anything, right? I mean, that's wonderful. Right. But the way that you know that is if they fail with a good attitude, where they enjoyed it, they tried it. Maybe it wasn't, the ultimate of efforts or the ultimate of outcomes, say. So just because a person didn't just knock it out of the park in the past doesn't mean that in the future they won't really succeed at it. And so when a person has a great attitude, just encourage them and keep giving them opportunities to try.
Right.
So
that's key right there. They may not be ready when the opportunity arises, right? And like you said, I like that, don't give up, right? As leaders, continue to build your team up or your colleagues up, right? Because it's not just people reporting to you, but it's also your peers, right? It could also be the folks around you that you could also elevate and help them grow. Even your bosses too, right? Can't tell them what to do per se, but you can influence them. You can show them how to do X, Y, and Z and help with the growth from that perspective. So, well,
back to the demonstrating integrity, you never know what's going on in someone else's life, and they may witness you demonstrating in sincerity and integrity at a moment where they really need it. And even if they don't come to you and say, boy, howdy, you sure lifted me up in a moment when I need it, that, if you always are that, then you're always providing that opportunity.
Yeah. And that's the impact. I've talked in the past about impacting people's lives, and kind of around the COVID timeframe, I went through an experience of kind of finding a purpose of, I think it was getting to my midlife crisis in the 40s, right? Trying to turn 40 around that time. And one of my biggest things is like, okay, I have a business, I got a team, but what am I doing? What is my impact? What legacy am I leaving here as I continue? I'm hoping to have 40, 50 more years still in my life, or more if possible. But that was a really turning point for me, because not only COVID was happening, we all retreated back into our own homes. Nature was actually feeling a little bit, better with not that many people walking around. Right? You can start seeing things, and it was such a it was a good time, but also a lot of sadness, obviously, with a lot of challenges and things that happened, right? But for me, it was a pivotal point where I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to create within this company and then with anybody interacting with me that leading with kindness and creating that impact of changing people's life, that you can build a business, that you can run a business or be part of a business where we do care about you and we do care about things around them. We care about our customers and not just lip service. Like you said, integrity, right? It's not just, okay, I'm going to put it as my core values, my vision, and here you go. And then I'll remember it when I come back and tell the team and never do it again, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
So I'm sharing that because, going back to your story, is that impact that really makes a difference, right? Because words are very powerful and you can accomplish anything you want. You can create. You're the creator of your own life. And if you choose with that mindset, of that growth mindset, to create an impact and create a happy life and create, people around you to enjoy being around you, you can. Nothing is stopping you.
Have you ever noticed that if you smile, people tend to smile back at you?
It's contagious, yeah.
Yeah, you just try it sometime. Like if you're just like, I'm just going to walk around this grocery store and just smile at everybody, And I mean, somebody might think you're crazy, but a lot of times people will smile back, and just for a second, they're a little lifted.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, right there, somebody could be going through something, but they get a smile, and that energy you just share with this person lifted them up just a notch, just a little bit, that whatever's happening in their life. So you never know. So keep smiling. I like that. Kind of shifting a little bit more towards describing a situation where kindness in leadership presented a challenge. How have you overcome that?
So I think the way that I would approach this question is just the way that you look at a situation where something goes wrong. If you're kind to yourself and when things don't go according to plan, then you give yourself the opportunity to see an opportunity. So, for example, before I started this role, I was working on a big contract and I was really excited about it. And I was also at a position in my life where it was really important to me, and from a career perspective, from a financial perspective. And then unexpectedly, it just went off the rails kind of quickly and very disappointingly. I was totally devastated. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I did something I didn't want to do, which is I took this job, because I wasn't going to take a W-2. I was going to go out there and eat what I kill and so forth. And gosh darn, this has been just an incredible opportunity for me. I've learned so much more in this role than I ever could possibly have learned, just helping people through one transaction after the next. And when you're dealing with people, occasionally, you'll have someone who doesn't fit with, I don't know, the schedule, the culture, the work, something. And, it's hard not to look at that and feel like it's not just the devastation. Like, oh no, I disappointed this, I let them down, or it didn't work out, or something like that. And for all you know, their next role, or the person who comes in, everyone might be much happier. Mm-hmm. They might find their real opportunity. So seeing yourself as truly living your values and being, even when things don't go according to plan, or even when you feel like it didn't work out, being kind to yourself in that way, it provides you the mindset to see opportunities that you will be blind to if all you can do is just sit there and kick yourself.
Right. And it goes back to mindset, right? Growth or believing in yourself. And but the big one is those challenges or failures or issues per se, right, are, if you look at it from an opportunity perspective. Mm-hmm. And my mind shifted several years ago where even as little as I'm driving on the road and somebody cuts me off, and your initial reaction is like, WTF? Like, what who do you think you are? Like, try to drive, it's like, to me, I learned this lesson a long time ago, driving in the DC area, right? It's like, we don't know what people are experiencing. We don't know the challenges that people are going through, right? And we can only control how we react to things.
Right.
Right? For example, reacting to somebody cutting us off or reacting to difficult situations, right? How we react to those things is a mindset. And if we don't get the contract, or if we, don't get the house, or we don't get the commercial property that we're out there, right? We're like, oh, we're failures, or, we should have done something different. Shoulda, coulda, woulda type of thing comes into your mind all the time. Or why did we do? It's more like, you know what? I appreciate the opportunity, and it wasn't meant to be. That's my first thing that I always say.
Well, when something negative happens on the road, it's an opportunity for you to reconnect with your values, because you're like, because you're, that it's instantaneous, with this chemical reaction where and that's an opportunity to say like, oh no, I'm not going to be that person, and I'm not going to allow. It gives you a rep in for walking that back down and remembering who you are and who you want to be.
Exactly. I always say something like that happens. I hope they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I hope they're okay.
Right.
That's the only thing I can react to that. But from experiences of challenges and seeing those as opportunities is a big one as a leader, right? As a kind leader, is like, because if you're seen as the leader and something that's challenging happens, how do you react to that? And how you're seen from your peers or your employees is going to reflect, going back to your integrity, right? How do you react to those situations? And you're in an environment, in a public environment where they'll see that. I'm not saying, hide it, but it's like, react to it in a way that, okay, how can we make this better? Compared to like, oh man, we're the worst, and we start going the wrong path. Obviously, not that many people are going to do that, or they suppress it and keep it internal, you know what I mean? And maybe think about it later. But even when you think about it later, make sure that you don't dwell on it and keep it inside and hidden in a way that is going to eat you up, right? It's going to eat you up, because that is an energy that you got to release.
Right.
Because if you keep that energy of anger or depression or something in there, of something happened, and you don't really lean into it, think about it and release it,
right,
it's going to continue to be stored away into this thing until it explodes.
And then you'll so I think that sometimes like you can think of yourself as also being like a horse and rider inside yourself. So you have your mind, and that's making these intellectual decisions. And then you have your non-lingual kind of animal self. Mm-hmm. And if you are secretly harboring a lack of kindness, or an anger or fear, so forth, it's very obvious to the animal underneath you. And that's yourself. And then yourself starts to distrust yourself as a leader. So you have to manage that personal relationship as well. Otherwise, you're unconsciously demonstrating a lack of sincerity.
Wow. We're going deep there,
Uh-oh.
Lauren. We went deep there. I like that.
Somebody get a snorkel.
No, I appreciate that. I think, and then this is what I like about bringing different guests with different perspective, and I can't wait to continue to bring others, right? Because I didn't really think about that, right? You're riding horses, and the horse can feel that energy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even if you try to hide it to yourself, you still have it in there.
It's in your body, and for you and me, it's in our body, and our body is storing these non-lingual thoughts.
Yeah.
So if we're privately berating ourselves and espousing an attitude of kindness, it's not sincere.
Right. And how you treat yourself also is you have to be nice to yourself, right? You have to be kind to yourself as well.
And a leader.
Kind leader to yourself. And I think about that, and we talk about being a kind leader to everybody out there.
Right. Oh, it starts with you.
With you inside, right? And because if you don't, then it won't allow you to be your true self.
Right.
So amazing. You got me thinking here, Lauren. I love it. I got a few more questions here as it relates to. One is the vision for the future of leadership, right? We talk about kind leadership, obviously, all the time here, but where do you see the role of kind leadership really evolving, right? Do you feel like there's a shift on how people led in the past to what it is now and where we're going to go in the future?
So we were talking a little bit about traffic in this conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
And I actually think it's an apt analogy because after COVID, a lot of people are working in exclusion of direct human contact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like driving down the road. You know, you're in your own little bubble and everybody around you is, you know they're human,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't really see that part. You see like the metal box around them, And so then it's easy to kind of categorize them as this person or that person. And like you said, I hope they're okay. Mm-hmm. You're acknowledging that's a human inside there,
right,
with their own agenda and with their own story. So what kind of mistakes do you make when you're driving? Well, you're self-centered. Your agenda comes first. You make snap judgments. And you think you know already what somebody else's experience is. And right now, gosh, we're going through this transition where people they can curate their own news for themselves, and further, the news curates itself for them. Mm. And so people have the ability to just get further and further into this isolated situation. And I'm so blessed here to have all these people around me all the time and have, these wonderful examples of really just terrific humans that are in this building. But I think my experience, our experience is becoming rarer and rarer. And so I think it's going to be really important for leaders of the future to make sure that their team stays connected in a human way, and that they see their team as full people, and to also realize when maybe that process is starting to happen, mm-hmm. and help people see mm-hmm. that that's happening to them, because boy, you don't realize it. If you're starting to get into an echo chamber about whatever it is,
right.
It's very hard to be self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that leaders in the future will have to do, because as our information becomes increasingly curated for what we want and desire, it'll get harder and harder to see that that's happening. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be the role of kind leaders.
Beautiful. And I think one of the things I was thinking also is being intentional mm-hmm. about leading, right? Mm-hmm. And then being a kind leader is not just being aware, like you said. Everybody gets caught up they're in the weeds. They're doing their work. They're chugging along. They're doing their thing, and they don't take a step back to appreciate, be grateful, for the things that they have, or look at the team. Let's pause, and as leaders, let's take it, be more intentional, and take a step into telling our folks that we appreciate them, but also take a step back and be like, hey, let's pause. Let's look at what we've been able to accomplish so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much,
Yeah, I think that that's another thing that I think is really important for leaders to do, because sometimes people, especially, when they're new to a concept, mm-hmm. and that doesn't mean that they're like the intern. Yeah. They could be new to a concept that is relatively sophisticated, right. but it's new to them.
Right.
I think it's important for leaders to help to explain what the value is. Like, where could this take you? Mm. If you're like in my field, sometimes I try to take a moment and explain to my colleagues, hey, look at all the skills you have now. If you decide you don't want to do like the big, managing big portfolio thing anymore, you can run your own little ship. Mm-hmm. And you have skills now that will provide for you for forever.
Right.
And that's hard to remember when you're just in the grind,
Right.
So
that's amazing. And then I really enjoy, like I said earlier on introduction, enjoy being part of this community here in the building, the blockchain here in Leesburg, Virginia. And it's been an amazing experience. The minute you walk in, every time I bring guests, or customers or partners, they're like, wow, I didn't know this building was here. And the way it's been set up and design and a lot of it is, it's been done by you and your team, right? To support this. It's kind of like it's a different world when you walk in, I feel like, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's in some ways it's a curated world, but it's self-curated. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean that we've had the wonderful access to incredible entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. This area with the technology and government contracting and defense and medical research, and there's just so many industries that have a huge, because of the data centers that are here, because right. Washington D.C. there's a huge overlap of different reasons right. why there's a lot of companies starting here, and we've been really blessed to have a really diverse portfolio of intelligent and driven and curious people, yeah. and they decide to be here. Right. And the real value that we have is these people that are here. Mm. I mean, we have great location, we look cool and stuff like that. But
close to the airport too. So.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. And I really enjoy, like I said, being part of this community, and they are amazing people. And you have so many different industries too mm-hmm. within this, so many small businesses, mm-hmm. startups or existing businesses that have been here for a long time. Like you said, insurance, government contractor, medical, landscaping, all this
aviation, a lot of RF technology.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. That's all and that's the diversity, this for those folks that may not be familiar with this building is similar to, it is a co-shared environment with mm-hmm. also offices for folks that to lease and stuff like that. And you see a lot of folks that are coming in, just maybe even as simple as, I just need a desk, right? To sit yep. and go away from being at home and being in an environment where I need to interact with others, right?
And other people that are not, that are kind of have their same problems. Right. I mean, whether you are an esthetician or you are building drones, yeah. a lot of the problems are the same. Yeah. And I have business problems that I need to overcome. And that's a conversation that it's a little bit harder to have with somebody who's never had that situation. Right. So regardless of the industry that you're in, and we do try to kind of encourage people to meet each other and give them opportunities to just talk to each other. Yeah. And it's not about us, it's about them.
Network and learn and build. So mm-hmm. with that, I do have a question that I like to ask our guests here. If you could have coffee with anyone alive or from the past, who would it be and why?
So I've noticed that a lot of people that you've asked this question of end up saying family members. Mm. And regardless of who they may admire. So I think that it would definitely be my mom's father, my grandfather. And now he was alive until I was in my 20s, but I went to college and then I started working, and then I just became a workaholic for a little while. And so and also I'm the baby grandchild. Gotcha. So I mostly knew him as a little kid. But his family were agricultural people, mostly farmers. And then he was the first person to go to college. Oh, wow. He became an engineer. He worked for GM, and he built like locks and windshield wipers. And he had these really thick sausage fingers. Oh, wow. He was a huge man. Apparently, my grandmother used to complain that people would call him horse because he was so strong. Oh, man. But he would whittle beautiful carvings, and he was incredible. Everybody would get some woodworking project, and they were immaculate. Oh, wow. But to me, he exemplified exactly the kind of kind leadership you're talking about. Nice. He was unfailingly the same person. Mm. Always kind, always gentle, extremely competent. And I don't know that anyone could remember him getting angry ever, regardless of the circumstance. And I wish that I could have that influence in my life on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. So that's why I remember him.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. It's such a great, would love to have that coffee with him too.
Yeah, well, if I can make it happen, you're invited.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. So now for our listeners, where can they connect with you, or if you want to follow up, where can they do that?
Well, we have a website, 880harrisonstreet.com. You can reach out to us that way. And that's the address of our co-working commercial space here in Leesburg. And we work out of that space. So send us an email. Awesome. And I'd love to give you a tour of what we're doing here and tell you about the space that we have here and talk about anything else. We can talk about horses if that's what you want.
There you go. Horses are great. I would love to go see them sometime soon. And, they can also find you in LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Perfect. So any final thoughts for our audience here?
I will be really quick. I'm going to talk about a lesson that I learned. I've mostly worked for small companies, but I worked for a stint for a larger organization. I worked for Custom Ink for a little while. It was a wonderful experience. Wow. And I learned, that was the only time I learned that you can intentionally manage the culture of a company. Alex Katz got up and did company-wide talks and discussed his vision for the philosophy of the company. And it really held through. Up until then, I thought companies were governed by the personality of the leader. I didn't realize that you could make it happen. That in that organization, people were just unfailingly polite and kind to each other. Wow. And I realized it really came from him. And so it's not that it's easy or that it doesn't require effort and work, but I think when you articulate specifically to your organization what your philosophy is, people will mimic that, especially if it's repeated to them, who we are and why we do what we do. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this is my hope too, that we continue to do that here within Bravo, and we keep repeating our core values and our vision. And this is great for folks that, they can make an impact and change as well.
Yeah.
So thank you. Well, thank you, Lauren, for your time and being part of our show here. And we had a great experience, and, we're looking forward to, maybe bringing you on later.
Oh my goodness. Well, I would be delighted. Thank you so much, Gino. This has been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. And please send me feedback or any thoughts on the podcast so far. This will be our 9th episode that we'll be posting out there. So if you have any questions, please reach out. You can send me a note via LinkedIn. But I'm always looking for other ideas as it relates to other guests or even just feedback on what you guys are thinking about the podcast, right? Always welcome. Want to continue to put the word out there. So with that, I look forward to talking to you all next time. So with that, be kind, bring value, rise together.